It's time now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France. And we have on the set, as always, Florence Villeminot. Hi, Flo.
Hi, Jeannie.
Today we're going to talk a lot about symbols here in France. And when you think about France, there's a lot of imagery that comes up. There's the Eiffel Tower, there's berets, croissants, but you're going to focus on official symbols that are used to represent France and the French.
That's right, and these symbols have become particularly visible in the wake of the recent terrorist attacks. Symbols have become really ubiquitous in public space. You've seen French flags everywhere, countless people singing La Marseillaise, the national anthem, and possibly brushing up on the lyrics because a lot of people didn't even know them in the first place. It seems like there's a need to reclaim these national symbols as a show of unity and resistance to fear. Let's take a listen.
The people who carried out those attacks want to divide us. More than ever, we have to say loud and clear that we're united and attached to our values. People died for those values.
Now, many of these symbols find their roots in the French Revolution, starting with the French flag.
That's right. Le drapeau tricolore, the tricolor flag, red, white, and blue. Now, those are colors appear on lots of flags, but here in France, they're quite symbolic of the revolution itself. Now, the center color, white, was seen as the color of royalty, the ancient regime, and it's caught in between blue and red, which were the traditional colors of the Paris militia, which was instrumental in sparking the French Revolution. Now, what's interesting is these three colors are often taken to represent the three elements of the French motto: liberté, égalité, fraternité, freedom, equality, and brotherhood.
I've always given a name to the colors of the flag: freedom, equality, brotherhood. The French flag represents unity. Despite different backgrounds and religions, deep down we're all the same. There are no differences.
Flo, earlier you mentioned La Marseillaise, the French national anthem, which also finds its roots in the Revolution.
That's right. It was written in 1792 by Rouget de Lille. But what's interesting is it was originally a war song. Now, it started being called La Marseillaise after volunteers from Marseille sang the song and made it popular across the country. Now, for a patriotic song, it must be said, it's incredibly gruesome. If you listen to the lyrics, it calls on citizens to take up arms, form battalions, spill impure blood in our gutters. So pretty gruesome, but also very moving to a lot of people. And it was adopted as the national anthem in 1795, so not long after the revolution.
Now, we've talked about the flag, we've talked about the national anthem, things that most countries have, but here in France, there are other special symbols, starting with a woman known as Marianne.
That's right. You might be familiar with Marianne. She's often depicted with a bare breast and a Frisian cap. You can see her here in that very famous 1830 painting by Delacroix, La Liberté, guidant le peuple, liberty, guiding the people. Now, Marianne was not actually a real woman. She's an allegory, a visual representation of liberty and reason. And here in France, you'll find her everywhere. There's statues of her in most official buildings and town halls, etc. She's on the official French stamp and the French version of the euro coins. Now, where does she come from? Well, her exact origins are a little bit unknown. Historians say that it's because at the time of the revolution, the names Marie and Anne were very popular amongst the lower class, and so when the revolution happened, the names Marianne merged into one, came to symbolize a change of regime. Now, we've been talking a lot about Marianne recently because the Prime Minister, Manuel Valls, glorified her bare breasts during the whole burkini debate. Now, it must be said he drew a lot of criticism and mockery from historians who said, you know, she's a symbol of democracy, not a statement about clothing.
Now, speaking about mockery, one of France's unofficial symbols, at least, which tends to raise eyebrows for those outside of the country, is a rooster, what's known as the Gallic Rooster.
That's right. There are more glamorous animal symbols around the world. The U.S., of course, has the bald eagle, you have the bear in Russia, and we have the rooster. Now, why in the world do we have the rooster? Well, actually, the Latin word for rooster is the same as the Latin word for the Gauls, the ancient people of France. And also there's a famous French saying that says that France chose the rooster because it's the only bird that will sing when it has its feet in the muck. Now, what's interesting is that the onomatopoeia for rooster, the cock-a-doodle-doo, I guess as you could call it, Cocorico, that's what it is in France. It's our word du jour. Why is it our word du jour? Because it's an expression that people actually use to, well, it must be said, mock national pride. So they use Cocorico.
Now, as you said earlier, these symbols have made a big comeback, especially in the wake of the horrible things we lived here in France over the past months. But these symbols are not something that everybody is comfortable with.
That's right. It's because these patriotic symbols have, for a long time, been associated with the far right, the National Front. And so this made a lot of people uncomfortable about this comeback of La Marseillaise, of Marianne, of the French flag. Some people say that it's grotesque nationalism, essentially something that's essentially very divisive. But others point out that there's a big difference between patriotism and nationalism. Let's take a listen.
I think there's a certain patriotism in the use of these symbols, and that's the big difference. They say patriotism is the love of your own, nationalism is the hate of others.
So at a time when France is facing some pretty serious divisions and there's a big debate over national identity, what it means to be French, well, these symbols are very important because even though they might be constructed, they represent universal and inclusive principles, democracy, freedom, everything like that, that just about everyone in France can rally around.
Flo, thank you so much. Another interesting lesson from our Florence Villeminot on French Connections. If you have any questions, any things that you'd like Flo to explore for you, be sure to send her a tweet at Flo Villeminot.